Hello and welcome back to another episode of WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm George Upper, editor-in-chief of the Western Journal. I'm joined today by reporter Michael Austin, an editorial intern, Tara Snyder. Not joining us today, Tara Snyder's tropical shirt. Apparently she was left off the distribution for the memo, so we apologize for that, Tara.
Aloha.
You can still take part. We're glad to have you here. Remind you as always to go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell next to it if you are watching us on YouTube, so you are always notified when a new episode of WJ Live comes out. YouTube does not want to notify you. So far, they're still reluctantly, I'm sure, doing it, so let's take advantage of that while we can. Because from us, you know, you will get truth about the news of the day from people you trust, and that's what we do here every time we show up for WJ Live. For example, today on the show, Tara has a story on the links that media outlets like CNBC are going right now to cover for President Joe Biden. And actor Matt Damon has had an epiphany when it comes to Trump voters. But before we get to that, podcast host Daryl Cooper, creator of the Martyr Made podcast, released a series of tweets on Thursday that have created quite a stir over the weekend, Michael.
Yeah, and so Cooper, in his thread on Twitter, he was talking about the 2020 election and, you know, the types of people, what kind of motivates them, the types of people that believe that the election was stolen. And, you know, so many elites in the media, politicians, Democrats, and lots of, you know, establishment Republicans, they all kind of look down on these people. They think that they're crackpots and conspiracy theorists. And yet, you know, this thread that Cooper put out, it really shows that, you know, they are justified in their fears that the election, you know, could have been rigged in some way. You know, a lot of the different conspiracies that have been put out, you know, some of them have been found to be false. Others, like, you know, governors unilaterally changing voting laws and, you know.
And illegally.
Yeah, and just the dangers that come with unsolicited mail-in balloting, you know, those fears are all warranted. And so, you know, the thread made some serious waves when Tucker Carlson decided to read it out loud on his show. And we're going to show you just a couple clips of Tucker reading that just to get you into it.
Series of tweets in which he tried to explain why so many Trump voters believe the last election was rigged. Really smart. He crystallized it. We'd like to read some of it now. Quote, "Here are the facts, actual confirmed facts that shape the perspective of Trump voters. The FBI spied on the 2016 Trump campaign using evidence manufactured by the Clinton campaign. We now know that all involved knew it was fake from day one. The voters this was aimed at are Tea Party people, the type who give their kids a pocket constitution for their birthday and have founding fathers memes in their bios. The intel community spying on a presidential campaign using fake evidence, including forged documents, is a big deal to them. Trump supporters know the collusion case front and back. They went from worrying the collusion must be real to suspecting it might be fake to realizing it was a scam, and then watched as every institution, the intel agencies, the press, Congress, academia, gaslit them for another year. In the end," Daryl Cooper writes, "not every theory about election fraud is true, but Trump's voters, quote, are absolutely right that their government is monopolized by a regime that believes they are beneath representation and will observe no limits to keep them getting it." End quote. That is true, and every honest person knows it.
Yeah, that regime absolutely does exist. And in Cooper's thread, one of the things that we kind of skipped over there was a tweet that he put out that I thought was really exemplary, really showed that to be the case. Here it is. "GOP propaganda still has many of them thinking in terms of partisan binaries, but a lot of Trump supporters see that the regime is not partisan. They all know that the same institutions would have taken opposite sides if it was a Tulsi Gabbard versus Jeb Bush election." That's the best quote.
Well, just the image of a Tulsi Gabbard Jeb Bush election. That's a lot of fun to be had right there.
Yeah, that would incite a lot of nightmares into a lot of establishment figures.
Yep.
But just listening to this, when I look at the 2020 election and I look at a lot of the claims that were made, like, about that, you remember that graph where like it's going up and then it spikes. Now, ahead of time, we knew that was going to happen. That was clearly not the result of any sort of fraud. And so, when that happened and people said it was, voter fraud, and when a lot of these other conspiracies happened, I started to there was a little bit inside me that was like, yeah, a lot of these people are just crackpots. They don't know what they're talking about. But, when I listened to that video and when I read that thread, it really made me realize, no, I should be more suspicious, if anything. Like, these people have been slandered. They've been called conspiracy theorists and the like, and they don't deserve any of that. And, I'm very regretful that I ever did feel that way, even though I still believe that a lot of those ideas about election fraud were conspiracy theories. But, did that video, did that change your guys' opinions of any of these people at all?
For me, I don't think it really did. I found myself kind of the entire time being like, oh, heck yeah, like that's 100% accurate. So at least in my mind, I was just like, no, he said what people have been talking about for a really long time and put it in a really articulate manner that I think a lot of people could relate to. And I think that's why we saw the clip just go absolutely viral when Tucker read it.
Yeah, I don't know that it changed my mind so much as it ordered it, structured it. One of the things I think was really powerful about this, both the tweet series itself, and there were 34 tweets in this series, by the way. This was a long thread on Twitter. But I think one of the reasons it took off, one of the reasons it got the attention of people like Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump, who's referred to it now, is because not because it illuminated something new, but because it resonated with something so many people already believed. And some of them had been able to articulate that, some of them not. But he just does such a good job in the course of these 34 tweets of saying, here's what people think. And in some cases, that's not backed up. But here are the things that they know, and these things are backed up. Here are the things that we have proof for. Here's Time Magazine saying this thing about election fraud, whatever. And so it's not, it's Twitter. It's not like he's throwing out scientific arguments or a bunch of formula for determining, what fraud looks like and how the votes were changed or anything like that. He's not trying to do that in, whatever it is, 230 characters. 280 characters, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever.
I can't remember. But he just summarized so well, like a drumbeat. This happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and it's hard not to be moved by that in some way.
And I think so many of these establishment figures, and and reporters and journalists and the like, they've gotten caught up with like, okay, that one theory about ballots disappearing overnight, that wasn't true. Right. And so then they dismiss the whole thing entirely. True, right. And that's so horrible, because we do know that the Russian collusion scam was just that. It was a scam, and it went on for years. They attacked Trump. And we do know that, the government and Democratic officials and Twitter, social media, big tech, they all conspired to help Biden win the election. They hid the Hunter Biden story.
Right.
They banned it from various platforms. So, all this to say, these people deserve respect, and they deserve, they have a right to feel the way they feel about the 2020 election, because there was definitely, the left was doing everything it could to get the outcome that it wanted.
Right.
And, another thing that this story really highlighted was that, the left and the establishment, they just think that everyday Americans are completely stupid. And that includes, CNBC and a recent article that they put out.
Oh, yes. So CNBC put out this amazing article with a great title, a title I probably would have gotten kicked out of Econ 101 for had I said it in class. But they said...
That probably depends on where you went to school.
Yes. Well, I had a Russian teacher who escaped the country, so I think that he probably...
So, he would have kicked you out of class.
Yeah, he would have been like, get out.
He actually knows economics.
Yes. So the headline read, "The Upside to Inflation. raising wages. So the upside to inflation, raising wages. I think that kind of rings a bell in everyone's mind of how stupid that is. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy to me. And so the article, as you can tell, was just as stupid as the title. Despite all of the times that the author kind of highlights, oh, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. It was at a point where it's just blatantly covering up for the Biden administration. So written in the article was consumers pay more for everyday items. Companies facing a labor shortage are also paying more to get workers to walk in the door. And it's like, how dishonest do you have to be at that point? Because people are scrambling for workers because you have them subsidized on these huge stimulant payouts.
That's
so
right.
they're just being dishonest.
Right. They're competing. It forces the private sector to compete with the federal government for those bodies, which is just ludicrous. To not mention that in the story is that's just dishonest.
Yeah, and it goes on and it says incremental wage increases are unlikely to keep the pace of the cost of living as that rises. So it's like, this won't actually be able to sustain you, but hey, the title makes you think it will. It's like you're contradicting yourself in your own piece. Like, it just blows my mind that you can have any semblance of journalistic integrity and just completely contradict your title. It's just so misleading. And
it's called clickbait.
Yeah, it's called journalism in 2021.
It's also called that. Yeah.
And it's concerning too because it's going to leave a lot of people's retirement accounts completely impacted because as that inflation rises, people are just going to be scrambling, being like, how do I survive now? As I've worked my entire life to be able to, kind of relax a little bit in my older age. So that's a whole other thing. But me being the thoughtful person I am, I thought of some great new titles for CNBC.
Oh, that's helpful. That's very kind of you, Tara.
So my first one is House on Fire. At least it kept you warm while you were standing outside.
That's
a pretty good one.
About right.
And then I have another great one, which is one they could have used just a few weeks ago. Actually, they did, which was economically suffering. Here are 16 cents towards your 4th of July barbecue. Those are the great headlines for them. So I guess this just kind of leads me to ask you guys, why does the media think Americans are just so stupid?
They can't. They're so isolated in their little circles. They never have to talk to actual Trump supporters, and if they do, the Trump supporters are too scared to actually tell them what they really think because they're just isolated in these little bubbles where they never have to deal with any contending ideas, and they just create these caricatures in their heads of what a Trump supporter is. Mm-hmm. And what that person is just some toothless bum in the middle of the deep South that doesn't know anything about anything, skipped out of school. And what just so happens to be the case is that everyday Americans, a lot of them very smart people, a lot of them entrepreneurs, those are the people that voted for Trump. And they just can't accept that.
No, it's the same problem we always get. It's the echo chamber. You have three essential cornerstones of the establishment, right? You've got the media, including both news media and entertainment media. You've got education, so public schools as well as higher education, which is largely federally funded. And you've got the federal government, which is career bureaucrats as well as elected public officials who, for the most part now, are career bureaucrats because we just keep electing the same people over and over and over again. Biden would be a fantastic example of that. All of those people talk to each other and pretty much no one else, right? So you go to an Ivy League school and they tell you, here's what you're supposed to think. And when you tell them, oh, that is what I think, they go, oh, how smart you are. You're a genius. You're a flippin' genius. And that's what they hear all day long, every day. So they come out of that thinking, oh, well, that must be the truth. And then they go into public service or they go to work for CNN or for MGM or, whoever. And they wind up hearing the same things over and over again. People tell them how smart they are, and they say the things back to the other people, and they tell them how smart they are. And it's an echo chamber. So once you have been told something over and over again, particularly when it's something you want to hear, like, wow, you're smart, you're really smart, it's hard not to believe that it's true. So I don't know that it's so much people thinking that that others are stupid. That's certainly an element. But I don't know that that's the whole thing. I think a lot of it is more thinking I'm smart. It's not so much focused on the other guy thing as it is about I'm super bright, so you should listen to me.
Yeah, and I think too, like, there's this huge consideration of where when the founding fathers were talking and highlighting freedom of the press, freedom of free speech, all of these things, I don't think that they even considered that a private company or private business would just be able to be like, no, actually, you don't get to say that. And so I think that you're just seeing this huge, like, kind of culture war, and I think it's kind of happening on the right too, like, we're getting shut down. We're not able to speak. Like, I think it's making the rift so much bigger. And even when the servers for Parler went down, I think that's really when the mask came off and people realized, wow, I can't even have my own thoughts anymore. And I can't even have a platform to speak on it because these private businesses are shutting me down. It's not even the left anymore.
Right. Well, it is the left. They're just not leftists in government. They're leftists in the private sector. And some of them act that way because they're afraid of the left. Some of them, some may be more agnostic as far as the culture war goes. But the left does such a good job of making themselves heard and saying, you want to continue to do business with people who look like me? Well, you'd better say stuff that I like. Or I'm going to tell all the people who look like me not to buy your product or do whatever.
Yeah, your
and
company's
the left
racist.
Does that. The left does that really, really well. And one thing, Tara, you pointed out that I should have said when I was talking about the establishment. When I say media, social media is also a big part of that. It's journalism, it's entertainment media, it's also social media. So that's a huge part. But we don't just, as I said, we don't just see this sort of attitude from those at CNBC in the journalism world anymore. Unfortunately, we see this all over the sphere, all over the globe, really. One example we saw this weekend was Matt Damon, of all people, who I have to say, as an actor, I kind of like.
Yeah.
Really like the Bourne movies. I watch them whenever my wife's out of town because she doesn't like all the whacking. That's what she calls it. The whacking.
The whacking?
The whacking.
Like the hitting?
Yeah.
Is that? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't like that. But I like that. So I watch those movies. Of course, he's been in all kinds of stuff. Good Will Hunting and Saving Private Ryan, the Ocean's movies. We Bought a Zoo. Let's not forget We Bought a Zoo.
We Bought a Zoo,
that's
box office success. That was.
Matt Damon and Scarlett Johansson in the largest waste of cinematic talent in decades. Anyway, Matt Damon, well-known leftist in Hollywood, even for Hollywood. He's pretty well known to be a leftist. But he's playing a Trump supporter in a film called Stillwater, which apparently has to do with to understanding the role. And just a few things he said about these folks. He said they don't apologize for who they are. They were wonderful to us. They got together and sang church songs. I'm not sure exactly which church songs those were. But, basically, hey, I'm surprised these guys were actually humans. They, they actually lived and breathed and, took out a guitar and they didn't play Springsteen or Dave Matthews. They played church songs. I don't know what that is. I know what a church song is. I don't know what Matt Damon means when he says church song. So quote, he says, being invited into their homes into a backyard barbecue, a guitar comes out and they start singing church songs. It's a very specific place. I don't know what that means. And very different to where I grew up. Oh, no kidding. And then finally he kind of summed it up. He said, it was really eye-opening to me. That was what really fascinated me, was that last. It really opened my eyes. This, in other words, one of the most influential entertainers on earth. I don't think we could argue that that's not true. He comes across as a guy who just discovered that this group of 74 million people who voted for Trump in November actually exist. Apparently in his 5 decades of life, during which it's believed that he has accumulated a net worth of something like $170 million, he's never bumped into organized religion. I can't even. What do these statements from Damon reveal about what it's like in 2021 to be a successful Hollywood actor?
Probably pretty close to Kamala Harris, considering she just said that no one in the middle of the country knows how to photocopy or has a Kinko's, which hasn't existed in 20 years.
Yeah.
So they're probably operating at that same
I mean, she
sphere.
was right. They don't live near Kinko's. That part is accurate.
That's right. Most people don't.
Also, most people in Heartland America don't live near Blockbuster. So that would be another example of things that they don't live near.
Yeah, which is really, really interesting for voting integrity, considering that these people mostly want it. And she's like, no, they don't know how to get it.
Yeah.
It's just okay.
Let me tell you what they want.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, yeah, I'd say that they're pretty much operating at the same field as the elite left.
Yeah, if you really think about who the left thinks Trump supporters are, it's not too surprising that someone like Damon would go, oh my gosh, these people are actually kind of nice and they're not crazy. I mean, if you lived in the same bubble Damon does, you would think that basically all the people that voted for Trump are either stupid or racist.
Certainly racist.
Yeah, I mean, they've really pushed that, Trump inspired like the white nationalists, the white supremacists, all that racism on the rise, organized race groups on the rise, when really the opposite is true. But that's who they saw those people are. And so as soon as he comes into contact with some actual human beings, reality is going to look a lot different from that caricature.
So that being the case, let's assume that Matt Damon actually learned something here. He certainly sounds like he only said it's eye-opening. So let's just take him at his word. Assume his eyes have been opened. Does that give you any hope for other elitists in media, in journalism, in Silicon Valley, in big government, in education, any of those places? Does the fact that Damon could have his eyes opened, assuming that means something useful, mean that other media or other elites could experience that same experience, or have these industries, these fields just gone too far to be saved at this point, Tara?
Oh, man, I think that they've gone so far. First of all, I don't know how you'd voluntarily get a leftist elitist to leave their mansion and be like, you know what sounds great? Going and sitting with these people who I think are racist in a bunch of cornfields with no Kinko's. I don't think I want to do that. So, I don't think it'll happen. I guess I'm maybe a little bit pessimistic. I don't think that that's going to change anyone's mind. And I don't think it's going to change Matt Damon's, because he's just going to be like, there's always an outlier. So I think it'll just.
Well, how many movies can we count on featuring the main character as a Trump voter in the next 5 years? I don't know that too many more of those are coming down the pike. So.
Yeah, probably fairly limited. I would think that's fairly limited. Tara does sound pretty bitter about the whole Kinko's thing, though, doesn't
does.
No, I'm mad.
She's pretty upset about it.
Hey, Michael and I, we got to defend our territory. We're Iowa, Minnesota, so I take that personally.
I'm Iowa. She's Minnesota. Don't.
Wow, look, he was quick.
Yeah.
Michael was quick to differentiate between those two states. Wow. All right, look, folks, make no mistake, there is an elitist liberal establishment, and this is going to sound dramatic, but I am, as K-Conk, our producer, will tell you, I don't have a bone of drama in my body. I couldn't be dramatic if I wanted to.
Special K.
She knows me well, and she'll tell you there's no drama there. So this is going to sound dramatic, but it is what I honestly believe. There is an elitist liberal establishment, and it is coming for you. Not just your guns and not just your money, although it wants both those things, and it wants them yesterday. It wants your freedom. It wants your God-given freedom. That's what the establishment is all about. It wants you to listen to what they tell you. You have to do what you have to say, what you have to think. It's a battle. No, it's not a battle. It's a war. It's a war that the Western Journal fights every single day, and it's a war that you can help us fight for a few pennies a day, seriously, a few pennies a day, by going to westernjournal.com/join and becoming a member to show your support for us. It doesn't cost a lot, and in fact, for a limited time, we're going to give you a 12-month annual membership a 12-month annual membership, Michael. It's not some other number of months for an annual membership. It's actually 12 whole months for only the cost of 10 months. So you're going to get 2 months free. If that math was rough, you're going to get 12, but you're only going to pay for 10. So that's 2 free.
My head hurts.
Sorry, I know we're English people here. We're not math people. It's about 17% savings, and what it amounts to is relatively almost no impact to your checking account, but a huge difference in what we are able to do on the very front lines of a war against fake news and establishment media bias. You can be a part of that. Is it a sacrifice? Sure. Is it a major one? I promise you it's not. Go to westernjournal.com/join. See the details there. You'll see I'm telling you the truth, and help us out. Help us in this war that we're fighting every day here on WJ Live and at the Western Journal. And with that, we will bid you farewell until our next episode. We are here to bring you the truth every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. We'd love to have you join us for every episode. We're certainly glad you joined us for this one. We'll see you again next time on WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. Stay safe. Welcome back to WJ Live. I'm George Upper, editor-in-chief of the Western Journal, and I'm joined today by two very special guests. We have...
I think I'm special. Thank you.
I think you're very special.
I appreciate that.
And from my friend, Andrew J. Shasha, reporter for the Western Journal, who has graced us many times in the past. Welcome back, Andrew. We've already done 50 episodes, 2 more, and we'll be equal to my age. I am flanked by 2 of our, that's a word I don't get to use very often.
It's true.
Flanked. And I'm joined today by assignment editor Joey Chester, as well as crack reporter Michael Austin.
Yes.
Yes. Not joining us today, my white polo, because apparently that memo doesn't go to everybody. I'm George Upper, editor-in-chief of the Western Journal, and this is Not Smoldering. I'm joined today by, what are you, distribution manager, Brian Chai, right? Manager of distribution operations.
The distributor of things.
Distributor, right. And with that, we must say sayonara. We said adieu on Friday. We said farewell on Monday. And today we're saying sayonara.
Oh, frick.
There's no particular reason why I picked that one, Brian.
Yeah.
It's just coincidence. We'll be here to bring you the truth every Monday, Wednesday, Friday.